It is the small hinges that swing the big doors. So it is the boring, daily, consistent stuff that is going to lead to you having your healthiest, most vital body.
Welcome to the Clear Skin Chronicles, the podcast that takes you on a journey to uncover the secrets of achieving glowing, acne-free skin. We believe that knowledge is power, and by understanding the root causes of acne, we can create a solid foundation for long-lasting clear skin. I'm Katie Stewart, registered holistic nutritionist and founder of the Clear Skin Solution, where we help women just like you get to the root cause of their acne.
And I'm Chris Brown, registered holistic nutritionist and program director inside the Clear Skin Solution. Through functional testing, we pinpoint where the body system imbalances lie, so we can dive deep into the acne clearing journey.
We work virtually with clients to clear up their skin from the inside out and have helped thousands of women worldwide regain their confidence. I'm always excited anytime we have a guest on the podcast. Today, I'm a little bit extra excited just because I've been wanting to have the amazing Jenn Pike on for so long. And she's finally here today. And the reason why I'm so excited is not only have I had the opportunity to be mentored her in her women's entrepreneurship programs, just everything that you share, your values, your mission is so in line with what we do as well. And just over the years, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you on a personal level, getting to have matcha with you when I came out to BC recently. So it's just kind of, for me, another one of those full circle moments where I've gone from being a fangirl to now getting to have you on the podcast. So Jenn, thank you so much for being on today.
Aw, thank you. And yeah, it's been amazing getting to know you over the years. And it was really awesome to be able to connect in real life when you were here not too long ago. It feels like not too long ago. And at the same time, it feels like it was a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just like back in March. So yeah. I kind of got ahead of myself. I got so excited Jenn was here. So let me give you a quick introduction. If you haven't had the pleasure of coming across the lovely Jenn Pike over on Instagram, where you're absolutely crushing it. What I really love about you, Jenn, is you are so outspoken and you're not afraid to ruffle tail feathers. You're not afraid to pull back on your opinions on things, which I think is so important, especially in women's health and hormones. So Jenn Pike, of course, she is an incredible medical exercise specialist and functionally integrative diagnostic nutritionist, specializing in women's health and hormones, which we absolutely love here at the Clear Skin Chronicles podcast. Jenn is also the best-selling author of 3 books, The Simplicity Project, The Simplicity Kitchen, and The Simplicity Body. I've read them. They're amazing. And she is the fiercely driven founder of the Hormone Project, Synced in the Audacious Women. I myself have taken the Audacious Women and it was phenomenal. Even to this day, I still have Jenn in the back of my head being like, no, you need to rest now. No, put some more joy stacking in there. And your powerful programs are so incredible because what I really align with in here is they're dedicated to empowering women and teaching them what they should have known about their bodies all along, the incredible healing abilities, the wisdom, the power that they actually hold within themselves to bring them to life and vitality. And if you're not busy enough, also being a mom of 2 teenagers, I guess going into their 20s, you also sit on the advisory board for Strong Fitness Magazine, which serves up a weekly dose of education, wisdom, and inspiration on your podcast, The Simplicity Sessions, which is ranked in the top 1% of podcasts worldwide. Not to mention your YouTube channel with more than 3,000 downloads combined. As I mentioned, a mom, you're also a wife. Your husband is also incredible. And I love that everything you do really helps teach women how to bring more simplicity and ease into their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's an incredible rap sheet, by the way, just putting it out there.
I was like, I'll just sit here. You know what? It's because I've been doing this for 27 years and I'm going to toot my own horn here and say it's actually 3 million downloads between that, not 3,000.
Oh, sorry. Did I say 1,000?
It's all cool.
I'm at million.
But here's the thing though, Katie, is that in a time where everything online is, you create this overnight and it just happens so quickly. Mm-hmm. And 1 year you can do, I'm a 27-year journey.
An overnight success, as they say.
And a 27-year overnight success, just a few decades. And I think that's so important and relevant, not just for anyone who is a business owner, an entrepreneur, practitioner that's listening, but just as a woman in general, because one of the reasons we struggle so much in our bodies is the level of pressure that we put on ourselves to be productive and to be achievers and to be successful. I feel like every single year I say this, but it rings true again and again. I look back and I'm like, wow, 27 years, and yet I feel like I'm just getting started. So it is that thing of the best is yet to come. And I'm 44 now. Like I was 17 when I registered this same company, and I am going to be 45 in a couple of months. And I think to myself, if I still wake up and have this energy and this passion every single day for doing what I do, and I feel like I'm just getting started, how much better can it get? And as a woman who's in perimenopause, I hear and see the opposite side of that all the time, which is like, well, now I'm going downhill. Now I'm in perimenopause, and now like life is unwinding and ending. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to banish that energy because it's actually the complete opposite. But if you're a woman who did not grow up ever being empowered or educated about her body and your own power as a whole, and then you get to this time of your life that feels very chaotic, unpredictable, up and down on every single level, physically, mentally, emotionally, relationships, business, finances, like community, everything, that's when it feels like someone just like whips the rug out from underneath you. So a big part of my mission and why I love doing what I do so much is to, first of all, call it out. Let's stop tiptoeing around it. Let's just call it out and name it so then we can claim how it is that we actually want to move forward into the rest of our life. Because I sit here and I was laughing with my husband, the other day, and saying, I keep getting asked to be part of these midlife summits and these midlife. And I was like, why am I being asked to be part of midlife stuff? And he's like, because you're going to be 45 and that's halfway to 90. I was like, oh my God, I'm midlife.
Chris, you pointed it out.
I was like, what? But I think that there's also something cool about that because I don't feel like I don't take that energy on now. I'm not now walking through my day being like, oh my gosh, I'm midlife. I'm just like, wow, that's so cool. I still have this much time left to do what I want.
I know it's really incredible when you take it from that perspective, right? Because I find in our society, we get nervous about aging, right? Especially as women, like, oh no, you're going to be 40. Oh no, you're going to be 50. Oh no, you're getting older. And it's always this idea that life starts to go downhill after that societal pinnacle of your 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I just embraced it in a different way where I was like, I let my hair grow gray. I don't inject my skin with anything. I'm just like allowing the process to happen. To be honest, one of the biggest reasons why is I am raising teenagers, and it's important for my children to see that I can love and honor myself at every age, every phase, every stage, as opposed to standing in front of the mirror and picking myself apart and being like, well, what can I change and what can I shift or what can I press pause on? And that has been a tool and a level of empowerment for myself. And also, I won't lie, in the beginning of going through the process, uncomfortable on a lot of levels, but now I sit here almost 3 years later of going through the gray journey, and I'm like, I'll never go back.
Yeah. And when you start growing your gray hair, I'm like, this looks phenomenal. Like it looks absolutely beautiful.
Thanks.
And I find that it's been such a really, I think, empowering trend. I've noticed it not just in yourself, but other women in their 40s. Like, you know what? I'm going to embrace this because I get to age. There's so many people in our society that don't get the privilege of aging, going into their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it really does come back to being a privilege of getting to have more years of life and getting to go through that wisdom.
You lovely ladies are blonde, so it's not going to hit you as hard when you look in the mirror.
I know.
That's true.
Mine will blend well.
Yours will blend very well. There's no contrast there.
Yeah. I'll just go like a white.
Yeah.
Chris has some white.
Patch.
Yeah,
you just started.
Beautiful and how it goes through because you've got like the ginger blonde. You've got the red that's in there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here's something for everybody to understand is when you're blonde, so my girls are platinum, like they're blonde and I was blonde and I would go to the hairstylist, very few, because I'm just not that girl. And they'd always say, do you want me to touch up your roots? And I'd be like, I got to go because you did not know that was natural. And it just kind of comes out like I was horrified. Right. And ever since then, I'm like, I'm not going to bother just putting so much attention into that. Yeah. And then recently, not recently, a long time ago, 13 years ago, when my last one was born, and all my blonde, I said, she's just sucked the rest of it out, right? And I started going brown. When you're blonde, you have that progression. You go blonde to brunette, then into the gray. So you get, we do have some benefits. We get maybe, 5 extra years, right? So I'm pretty sure I would have been gray at 35, guaranteed, if I didn't have that transition.
Or you didn't have our son, he was born white hair, blonde hair wise. I was like, whose baby is this? And then as he got older, it started to, and now he's going to be 16 in a few weeks. Mm-hmm. Now it's gotten darker. And then because as a boy, like he's constantly cutting it down every single time he does a cut or like does a buzz, and then it comes in darker and darker. So yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. It's so interesting to see. Now, what really inspired this talk in general was we've had so many women in our community saying, Katie, I would love more information on perimenopause. Mm-hmm.
I'm getting into, it was because I kept crying about it.
Oh, and Chris. Yes.
She's just doing this to appease me. 100%. Sorry, everyone listening. This is
50% Chris, maybe 60% Chris, because we do kind of target the women in their 30s, their early 40s, because so many women are still getting acne in their 40s and 50s when they've been told, oh, you're going to grow out of it. It's just a teenager problem. And I'm like, okay, well, what age are they going to grow out of it? They're 52. Yeah. There is no growing out of it. Yeah. So I thought just even including the conversation more around perimenopause, how we can, be embracing it, how we can be supporting our health through this time. Because what I really love that you do as well, Jenn, is you're very lifestyle based with your teachings. It's not just take these 18 different supplements and you're going to be fine. It really is like, we can't out supplement bad sleep. We can't out supplement stress levels. So I thought it'd be really, really important to kind of talk to the perimenopause community. And Chris, I know, how do I say this gracefully? Where we have clients in their 40s, we generally pair them with Chris because she is also in that age bracket. Did I say that eloquently enough?
I don't know, but I hope this is like on video so everyone can see that. But what else?
No, but
it's true. You go through the life stages with people, then you understand it, right? If someone's 100%. Having a hot flash, guess what, girl? I know it sucks having to go switch your shirt in the middle of the night, or you know what? Now you have to you're already tired and you're washing your sheets every few days versus, right?
Yeah. You get to go further in the journey with a client when you've shared a lived experience. Right. And so This is it, is we can all, as practitioners, clinicians, like we can be loaded with tons of knowledge, but there's a difference between having like book knowledge and, not a knowledge of like reading studies and information versus like actually having gone through it. It's like, I think back to my early days when I was doing a lot of personal training in that, and I didn't have my children yet. And I was working with a lot of mothers and I would hear them, but I didn't get them. And then I had my kids and I was like, whoa,
I get it.
I really need to go back and say I'm sorry because I did not understand what you meant when you were telling me those things. And it's the same thing. Like we run a clinic where we have multiple functional medicine practitioners, and one has gone through is like 7 years postmenopausal now. Well, we are very specific and intentional about putting our postmenopausal women with Steph because she has gone through the lived experience, and so it's like, being able to match that energy with clients, they just feel seen and heard and understood a little bit differently. And when that happens, then you kind of break down the first barrier. And now you open up that possibility for there to be a lot of honesty, a lot of transparency, and you can go deeper in the client journey when you have those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard, right? Because a 25-year-old can't really understand what a 48-year-old woman's gone through in their life because they've had kids, they have different phases, they've so many different lived experiences. So I think it's really important to be able to have that, especially in a practitioner. Yeah. That, like, I always find it so funny that there's, going to a male OBGYN and they're like, oh no.
I'm like, what was your motive? Yeah. On both ends. The motive? I'm like always so curious because I've interviewed a couple of male OBGYNs, and most of them, I will say in my experience that I've interviewed, their mothers ended up passing something that could have been prevented for that. So yeah.
So for those that aren't familiar with perimenopause, because I sometimes as a practitioner, I've been doing this for years as you have, Jenn and Chris, is sometimes we forget that the knowledge that we have isn't common knowledge, especially in women's health, because like for me, I don't think I learned about like my menstrual cycle until I was in nutrition school at the age of 24. I'd already gone through a decade of having periods, had no idea about anything about my cycles. So if we can kind of just start from the basic is, what is perimenopause and when does it start?
So perimenopause is the uncoupling of our ovarian health and our ovarian reserve. So what starts to happen is we go into perimenopause, which the age range honestly is changing often right now. So it depends on what's going on in a woman's life. For some women, they won't start to experience symptoms until they're like between 41 and 44, and other women are going to be 35, 36. I have women that are in our clinic right now who are in their late 20s, early 30s, where we are supporting as perimenopausal clients who are suffering from premature ovarian insufficiency. And so, in a nutshell, what happens is as we start to age, we are starting to lose the ability to have the key hormones on board to make sure that we are maturing dominant follicles on the ovaries every single month, that we are getting the message in the cue to actually be ovulating on a regular basis so that we're producing a healthy amount of progesterone that is regulating our cycle, regulating our mood, making it possible to actually get pregnant and have a full-term pregnancy and move onward. In perimenopause, what starts to happen is that process is starting to slowly shift downward in our bodies. And that is by nature's design. None of us can escape perimenopause. We're all going to go through it. We're all going to go through menopause. And so many women right now are like, how do I avoid it? How do I just like bypass it? And are there ways that you can literally bypass those phases and just arrive? Yeah, sure. You could stay medicated on the birth control pill for the entire process where you don't ovulate once. You could be using different things like that. But where we want to support the body is understanding that as this is going on, you're going to start to notice some different symptoms. So women won't literally, like, your body's not going to send you a text message and be like, hey, just so you know, your ovarian reserve's down a little bit. Your brain communicating with the ovaries, it's not quite firing as optimally as it used to. And so we're going to skip a month ovulating. You're still going to get a period, but you're not going to release an egg. You're not going to ovulate. What the body does is you start to recognize that symptoms of PMS, so moodiness, breast tenderness, maybe some spotting starts to happen at ovulation, or very commonly in perimenopause, the couple days before your period, you don't have a period yet, but you're noticing when you wipe, there's a tinge. You're noticing in your underwear, there's a little bit of like brown or light pink. Still not a full period, but you've got some spotting. You notice your mood is not as stable as what it used to be. You get a little bit more prickly, a little bit more lack of patience. BS meter is like very, very short, probably more emotional. Sleep starts to shift. Digestion is off. So a lot of these things that we would just categorize as being, well, that's just PMS. There's a difference between having PMS and then having what starts to intensify. For some women, it'll manifest into PMDD, which is going to be much more severe. But for a lot of women, they're just noticing the things that kind of would show up are now really interfering with their day-to-day life. Another big one for women in perimenopause is that the length of the cycle will change quite a bit. So let's say they had like a 28 or 30-day cycle. Now they're like, oh, that's interesting. Now I have like a 26 to 27-day cycle. I'm losing a couple of days off each cycle. And it does this, our bodies will do this thing where you can have like 2 months in a row where it's like 26, 26, and then you have your 29 day that you normally would have. Then it'll go like 26, 26, 29. And then you'll have a random, like we have women all the time that'll say, I just had like a 21-day cycle. I started to bleed a week early. That's never happened before. And I'm a really big fan of encouraging women, track your cycle, but keep a journal. Don't just track when a period starts and ends, but start to take notice of those different signs and symptoms that are happening in your body. The quality of the actual bleed itself changes a lot in perimenopause. Commonly, you'll see that women who say, I never used to have any issues with my period. Now I have this really heavy bleed where it feels like my whole period comes in about 48 hours. It is like I'm hemorrhaging. It is so heavy. And then it stops very abruptly. Then I might have a day of spotting and then it's gone. The other thing that can happen for a lot of women is, and we were talking about this earlier, is the vasomotor symptoms. So body temperature regulation is not what it used to be. So there's hot flushes, there's hot flashes, there's night sweats, and then there is like you are, as Chris described, you are drenched. You wake up and you can't just lie there in that, because you go from being raging hot, full on sweating, to now freezing cold because now your sweat is cooling. And so these are vasomotor symptoms where that hypothalamus in the brain that is communicating with our entire endocrine system, the regulatory, effects of that are off. So the signals, the pulsing, it's not regulated. Now, there's lots of things we can do to support that. Stable blood sugar is ground zero. Like for any woman in perimenopause, the first pillar to work on is blood sugar stability, glucose and insulin. We have to get them on board, optimizing digestion, because in perimenopause, we're so over-focused on the changes happening in our period and in our hormones that we are negating how many changes happen in our gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome completely changes when you go into perimenopause. When you have lower levels of estrogen, like specifically estradiol, E2 from the ovaries being produced, plays a huge role on that gut microbiome. When you have lower levels of progesterone, that's going to impact that mood stability, that parasympathetic nervous system. Your adrenals and your thyroid are far more vulnerable when you're coming into perimenopause because you don't have this normal cadence like you did in those deeper fertility years in your late teens, your 20s, and in majority of your 30s, where there was a lot of predictability. Perimenopause, it's the bookend puberty. So as a tween and a young teen, we know that we have this, all the hormones are coming online. We have this huge surge of estrogen coming on, and then the body starts to ovulate and we have progesterone and our DHEA is increasing and testosterone is coming on the scene. And so we understand that. But what we've not been taught is that you have this secondary puberty, which is now the unwinding of that whole system. And so the age range, like if you look at actual menopause, the statistical age is average of 51 years old. Okay. That is menopause. That means the woman has gone a full 12 months with no period. And now that one day on the calendar is menopause. The rest of her life, which the average woman will live about a third of her life post-menopausally after that. But coming up to that 12 months, it averages about a decade of these tiny little changes happening behind the scenes that we dismiss. The headaches that you never used to get, your skin changing, the breakouts you never used to have, the breakouts you used to have that went away and now all of a sudden they've come back just for fun. Just for fun. Your hair is thinning, the texture of your skin is changing, vaginal dryness, atrophy, peeing your pants, all these different types. When I first started researching and teaching about perimenopause about a decade ago, so I wasn't quite a decade ago, around 36, I was looking deeper into this. This is when I really started to do a lot of cyclical living training. I was creating Synced behind the scenes. And a lot of it back then was looking into, that kind of deeper dive of what is going on in our body from like a tendon and ligament perspective. So when we lose estrogen, we're more prone to injury. We're more prone to things like prolapse. We're more prone to, not just like leakage, but also UTIs, because there's a big bacterial connection that happens in perimenopause. So women who are getting chronic urinary tract infections, yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, we've been taught our body is like sectioned off. You only have a headache issue. You only have a thyroid issue. You only have a constipation issue. You only have a yeast issue. And the whole body is this massive ecosystem. We are like literally our own self-sustained rainforest where there's all these different mechanisms happening. And perimenopause will be that time where things start to slowly shift. And we have a choice as women where we can dismiss it. We can submissive, where we can just like take something to no longer feel the thing, or we can start to get curious and go, what does that mean? So when I first started to research this all these years ago, there was about 30 symptoms associated with perimenopause. About 5 years ago, when I started to go deeper into this with the Hormone Project, there was 73. And now there's over 100 different symptoms associated with perimenopause. Everything from our brain health to our breast health to our bone health, and everywhere in between. So if we overfocus on just the period being the thing, like women reach out to us every single day. I'm 45 years old. I don't think I'm in perimenopause yet because I still have a period. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we still have so much work to do, because this is the measuring stick women are using. I still have a period, so I can't possibly be perimenopausal. Also going and working with physicians and OBGs and practitioners who don't understand it, who also will say to them, well, you're only 41. So even though you have all these symptoms, well, that's not perimenopause. We need to use an IUD, put you on the pill. You might need an antidepressant. and they start looking at all that, but that's not perimenopause. Like, you're too young. So we're not listening to women's experiences. And the woman who has had more stress and more trauma in her life, the woman who has been at the bottom of her priority list, the woman who has very low body fat, the woman who lives her life through the lens of productivity, accomplishment, intensity, and frequency, she is much more prone to end up moving into early perimenopause than the woman who is just like living life and, kind of oblivious to what's going on. It's really fascinating when you take a look at a lot of, like, we've measured this clinically in our own practice to see, what are the habits of the women who go into perimenopause or menopause early versus the habits of those who are still having regular menstrual cycles well into their 50s.
I feel like you're calling me out here, Jen. I'm like,
oh my gosh, you too? I was like, Katie, you shared information. You're going down later, right?
Jen just described me to a T.
I'm like, oopsie. However, I think I'm doing pretty good because,
you're doing pretty good.
Jen will let everybody know, there's ways around it, right? Once you understand, then
ways to help improve how you're feeling, because
exactly.
The issue is so many women. I need
to say ways around it because it's productivity, right? Everything's an ends to the means. Like, get me to point A here and let's do it efficiently, And I think don't die.
So here's the thing with perimenopause, though, is like, how we do one thing is how we do everything. Like, literally, that is it. So it's like, and I see this in action all the time. And I also am not immune to this. So I am somebody who, for the most of my life, the way that I fed my self-worth was through accomplishing things, was through being a leader, was through creating, being successful. And so it's a lot of work to unwind that, because your identity, how you perceive that people like you, love you, stay with you, is attached to all of that. So it's not as simple as just saying, you just have to stop doing that. It's, you're literally subtracting and unwinding the way you do everything. So then women who come into our practice who are very like, I got this, I'm on it, I'm going to be the A+ student. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So
we got a little extra work here.
I'm like, you cannot approach truly taking care of yourself with tenacity. They don't go together. You have to have grace. You have to have compassion. You have to have patience. You have to slow down. You have to identify the things that have actually, created this perfect soup to kind of get you to where you are, that has, established some of these imbalances. And we have to pull apart one piece at a time. And so there are a ton, and we can talk about all different kinds of strategies and how you support yourself, because even in a time when right now everyone's being told, just go get on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Just get on the hormone replacement therapy. It's going to change your life. It's going to fix everything. I'm a huge fan of hormone replacement therapy. I use hormone replacement therapy myself, but not for 1 second am I under the illusion that you simply take that and now you can take your hand off the wheel of everything.
All your issues are solved.
No, your lifestyle is your anchor. Like, that is the foundation. And I'm, it's interesting. I sit back and I take all the information in that's coming out. And right now, every podcast, every social share, everything is towards the perimenopausal and the menopausal woman. Like, it's like someone just took the lid, like the cap off the geyser, and it is just
everywhere.
It's
everywhere.
It is everywhere. And I'm that kind of person where I take it in, I press pause, I get curious, I absorb it, I ask more questions. I like to wait, watch, and see, because this isn't the kind of thing where you want to go be the early adopter, meaning you don't want to just jump on the bandwagon of everything you're being told to swallow, to chew, to take, to do, and all of that. There's a lot of great stuff out there, but this is a massive market right now. It's a massive market right now. So you do have to be careful that you're not in the habit in perimenopause of going and purchasing a bunch of products. Where you want to start in perimenopause is anchoring yourself into your daily habits of living.
100,000%. And we preach the exact same thing for acne, because It really comes down to your lifestyle habits, right? You can't out supplement stress. You can't out supplement poor sleep. You can't out supplement whatever it may be, because we live in this Amazon Prime society where we're like, oh, I just need to order something and comes tomorrow and all of my issues are going to be solved.
Yeah.
When we really need to be looking at those foundational components, yet so many people want to skip over it. They're like, that's not fun and sexy.
And that takes too much time, and I'm already busy. And so it's also this, like, we're so out of alignment, and it's a hard time as a woman when you're coming into your late 30s and your 40s, because you're not only going through perimenopause, you maybe have a family that you're raising, you're working, you have a partner, you have a home, you maybe have parents that are aging. There is a lot, there is so much happening in this decade of time in your life, let alone what's going on in your body. So when your body starts to feel unhinged, and now the one thing that maybe you did have that you could count on is also like, I'm also going to go sideways on you. And women, and I get it, you're just reaching for all these different things, but you have to just slow down. And I will say this, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Katie. Every day there's companies that reach out to me and they want to send me all the free stuff.
All the free stuff.
And I say no all the time, because A, I don't need to have cupboards full of things. And B, I know what it is that my body and my system requires and what it does not. And I'm also very aware that in perimenopause, as gut function is shifting, liver function is shifting, gallbladder health is important, our ability to eliminate and detox, I am not in a state where I'm like, I need to go and put 30 different pills in my body every single day. I'm actually going to make things harder and worse and make it take longer. So I say no all the time.
99% of the time I say no.
Honestly. And it can be great companies. It can be the companies that everybody, if I were to say their names right now, has ads nonstop come to them through Instagram. And I am just like,
nope.
No, because it's a distraction and it takes away from, like, here's the thing, ladies listening, at the end of the day, you're going to have to put the time, energy, and effort into your health. And in the beginning, it's going to feel hard because it'll probably be new to you. And then it's going to become as easy as brushing your teeth, because it'll be a habit. And I always say that to people, like, could you imagine if I said to you, you can't brush your teeth for the next 4 days? And people instantly, like, they're running their tongue.
Like, no,
feeling the sweater. And they're like,
fuzzy.
Oh my, that is how you actually know that you've started to establish really healthy habits, where the thought of you not eating the food that makes you feel stable, not having enough water, not moving your body, not doing those things, like, that's how you know these are habits that are anchored into you. And that is going to pay you 10 times more than going and taking the latest powder, the latest tincture, the latest, like, all of the stuff.
Chris and I talk about this all the time, because Chris is actively working with our coaching team so much that when we're like, hey, this is going to take time and patience and commitment, and we're going to have to work on that mindset, and maybe let's slow it down a bunch. We still receive so much resistance, because when we're like, no, I want to do this, I want to do that, right? Like, Chris, we see this all the time.
Yeah, I've already done this, or I already eat healthy and I don't have any stress. I've really been working on the stress as you're crying on a coaching call with me. Right. And your heart goes out and you can't tell anybody, like, we're not here to tell. I always say, if you ask the universe for patience, you don't get patience. You get opportunities to use the patience. That's how we're trained. But when somebody is so invested in something and wants a goal and they don't see it happening and they don't understand why, and they've done everything, or they've told themselves they've done everything and they're not stressed, where do you start, right? And as perimenopause, and hello, I'm here. But when stuff like that happens, somebody that has invested all of this time in herself does have the education. I'm like you, Jen, you know what? I sit there, I'm like, grovel, love it. Listen, let's see how this plays out for a little bit. Let me refine that message on how I want our clients to understand it, how it works for them, right? Because there's really no right or wrong, that there's a progress it's like a process of progress. So long story short is, when I'm sitting here and I'm trying to do all these, and I'm starting to go through changes, and I'm like, man, I know better. I am better. I am. And I can tell myself all this stuff. And then I'm just like, what have I missed? Right. So when I give myself the opportunity to say, what am I missing, or what am I not affording myself in my life? whether it's rest or whether it's whatever, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, the judgment goes away. Because that's the last little nugget right there. That judgment is so, so hard on perimenopause and skin and weight and anything on the exterior side, right?
And it is, I mean, my gosh, there's so many layers of it on the emotional side of it. The other thing is we get used to what we're used to, right? So it's like, if we've always had lots of responsibility, we're like, that's not stress. That's just my norm. Yeah. If we've always been the person to do everything for everyone else, we're like, that's not stress. That's just my norm. So we like reconcile in our mind, this is just my life and this is it. And so that can't possibly be like, I'm used to it now. But there's also stress that we don't recognize in terms of other people's stress. Remember, like our nervous system doesn't really understand if it's our stress, imagined stress, someone else's stress. Like we just actually, the body will perceive what's going on and create a reaction. But the other things that we don't connect to in perimenopause, again, because we're so focused on the hormones and on the cycle, is there could be stress that's happening that's chronic low-grade inflammation. There could be a gut infection. There could be, I mean, I'm sure in skin, you see this all the time. H. pylori is there. There's candida that's there. You know, there are sensitivities people don't realize. And so there's like this slow leak. I had a client yesterday that I was in a call with, and we were doing, she works with an ND and she's also working with me. Been together a few months. And I said, you know, I know you had blood work done in March, but when I look at your blood work, there's a couple markers I would actually really love to see that weren't added on here. I just kind of have, like, I have a hypothesis and I just want to see if I'm onto something. And so one of the markers that wasn't tested was her high sensitivity C-reactive protein. And I wanted to run, and I wanted to run her thyroid markers again. And so the way I look at and interpret test is maybe not the way that a lot of people do, but it's a little bit of kind of detective energy where I'm always looking for like these suboptimal, tiny little hints. It's like solving a puzzle. It's not going to come right out in your face. And you have to know not only how to read the one marker, but how they all interact and talk with one another. Her CRP was glaring. Her CRP was 8.9. Okay. 8.9. Wow. Now, she has been on a mold and a detox protocol. She's also on a whole bunch of things for her adrenal, like a lot of different things. And I just said to her, I feel like you've been told that you have adrenal fatigue. And I don't actually think you have adrenal fatigue. I think your adrenals are giving some signs and symptoms due to this. You have major inflammation happening systemically. And we really need to be supporting cooling this down in your lymph and all of that. And that's going to actually take the pressure off the adrenals. So sometimes it's like, we don't know what we don't know is going on in the body. And that's the beautiful piece of integrating functional labs and different types of testing. You can see it a lot when you test hair, you can see it in urine, like there's many different ways. But so many of us, we can't actually name the stress. You're too close to it. And that's why when you get to see either your own chemistry through a test, or you spend time with somebody who asks you maybe the same question you've been asked a ton of times, but slightly differently, it's those moments where you're like, huh. And that's when I find then a client will actually do the things that you were suggesting for them to do. Now there's a different meaning.
I think that's so, so important. Is I'm glad that you brought up the component of, oh, I'm not stressed. Because Chris, how many times do we hear this from clients? Oh, no, I'm not stressed. And we're like, okay, well, tell us about your day. We literally in our intake form say, tell us about your day. Do you have any stressors? And they're like, oh, you know, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to do a HIIT class before my 3 kids wake up. And then I take them to their activities. And then I'm actually going to go run groceries. And I do all of my gratitude practice. And then I start work and I'm emailing in the car. And then I'm doing that. And I have no stress. And we're like, can we just rewind, just pull it back there a hair, because we've only gotten to 10 a.m. and that's a stressful day. But they're like, no, that's just my day. But I think we just get so used to the stress that we don't feel stressed, but that doesn't mean our body isn't stressed.
Well, and in perimenopause, the bandwidth of your stress elastic is shorter and shorter. So you hit maximum tension much quicker. The you that used to be able to be a multitasker and do all of the things, you hit a certain point where now everything you signed up for that you used to love and gave you purpose and dopamine, you now resent a lot. And you get very frustrated and you don't you're like, I used to care about everything and now I care about nothing. Like, I don't care. Oh, you didn't have that done? Don't care. Oh, you don't care. And that's like what happens in perimenopause. And this is why for so many women, they're like, I do not recognize myself. I've moved through my whole life being this way. And now I'm over here and I'm just like, who am I? And, there's big changes that happen as well, too. Like your kids getting older, like we feel it in our household, our kids are teens now. We have to like schedule family dinner around the table between their jobs and their social life and all of that. And that is actually way more impactful on your body than you realize. Like it's a little bit heartbreaking and you feel that. And so, everybody manages that differently. Like our oldest graduated high school in June and went through prom. I was so emotional the whole month. She had prom, she graduated, she turned 18, all within 4 weeks.
That's a lot.
Oh my God, I was so emotional. My husband was like, this is like, she's doing great in life. This is a good thing. And I was like, it's all wonderful. But also, I was like, I feel like my role as her mom has forever changed. She's not in school anymore. She's like legal now. No one prepared me for that. They prepared me for like the fun of it all and like buying the dress and doing the thing. But when you're in it, so all those little emotional things that happen, you don't have the same reserves to tap into where your body's like, I got you, don't worry. In perimenopause, you have to have yourself because your body actually doesn't have you. You have to have yourself. And that's why having the stability of eating enough and not like one of the biggest things we see women do that's working against them in perimenopause is over fasting. Fasting can be wonderful and can be therapeutic, but they're over fasting. They're eating in a caloric deficit in a very short window. And, what might have worked in the beginning is now doing the opposite of working. And this is where we'll see a lot of suboptimal thyroid issues show up. They're struggling with their weight. They can't build muscle. And so stabilizing blood sugar, making sure that they are eating enough calorically, prioritizing the right kind of movement in perimenopause, and everyone's going to be different because the person who's never worked out, what's going to be good for her in perimenopause will be very different than the woman who has always worked out. So when you're talking about the woman who she does HIIT, she does CrossFit, F45, Orange Theory, and she loves it. Like that is a joy point in her day. You can't just say to her, you have to stop that. You're taking joy away from her. You have to know how to recommend something where it's like, okay, so what if 2 days a week you go and do that? And then the other couple of days, can we actually do specific strength training? And then can you walk like in nature? So it's also knowing how to guide people through this. Optimizing sleep. There is not a supplement on the planet that will do for you what proper rest and sleep will do. And in perimenopause, you can know this, but your body struggles. Like sleep is probably, I would say, one of the top 2 struggles that women have is that they cannot sleep. So this is, doing a thorough intake, supporting her, and it could be certain nutrients she could be deficient in. She may not have stable blood sugar. She may need to have a little bit more minerals coming into the evening. She may need different herbs, right? She may actually need things that go in and kind of calm and cool her nervous system down. She may need progesterone. Progesterone is beautiful at helping women to sleep, right? And, progesterone helps you fall asleep. Estrogen helps you stay asleep. So I'm not of the camp where everyone's like, you don't even need to test hormones to put a woman on hormone replacement therapy. I will always test hormones.
Always.
Because and I'm not going to just test hormones. I want to test the whole gamut. I want to understand the body I'm about to put hormones into and how 100%. Well you're currently doing, because you need to be able to track this over time.
Yep.
So the symptom picture is massive, but we also do need to be running labs because there's more that we're looking at than just estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
100%.
But for some women, there's not enough herbs out there. There's not enough Vitex. There's not enough sage and wild yam. Like once those hormones are gone, they're not coming back. The only way is to replace them. And that is where the addition of bioidentical hormones come in. You just want to make sure that you are working with practitioners who understand the mechanisms of those, who also understand when and how you introduce them. To know that there are, for instance, when women start taking progesterone, it actually starts to wake up estrogen receptor sites. So you have a woman who starts on progesterone, she may all of a sudden have intense breast pain. She may start to retain water. She might start to have symptoms that you could think, oh no, this is not a positive thing. Let's pull her off. That's not correct. And the way in which women take it, oral, cream, gel, patch, right? There's all different, different types of that. But I do think for women in perimenopause, it is a conversation you need to start to have. And it's finding a provider who understands the vast landscape of supporting your body.
100%, because I feel like, as we talked about earlier, where women aren't taught about their bodies, and it's really just been since the advent of social media, where women are starting to say, oh, that's just not part of being a mom. That's just not part of being a woman. These are things that are meaning things. So I think this is such an important conversation to have, that the symptoms that you're having, just because they're common doesn't mean they're normal, and doesn't mean you need to live with them. There are things and strategies you can be doing. Simple things like sleep. And I think sleep is just as important as the food we're eating and the water we're drinking, right? Our body needs sleep to survive. Yet we live in this society that wears a lack of sleep like a badge of honor, where they're like, oh, no, I was up all night folding laundry. I got 4 hours of sleep because then I had to get up and I had to write my emails. Yeah, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're a superwoman. I don't know how you do it.
How do you do it all? Yeah.
How do you do it all? And it's this cycle that we're living in that's ingraining, becoming slave drivers to ourselves, that's really impacting the foundational components of our health.
This is a really key for women who are listening, who they don't have a lot of like self-awareness or connection right now, and they're wondering how well they're doing. If people in your life repeatedly say to you, I don't know how you do it all, and who are praising you for just how busy you are and how much you're doing it, you probably need to spend some time with someone to evaluate your body, because you want to get in front of this. Perimenopause is your opportunity to get in front of menopause that we're all going to go through. And, this is an entire uncoupling of your whole endocrine system, your gut, the structure that is necessary for optimal bone health, for breast health, for cognitive health, like literally everything, the way you manage glucose and insulin, like it is the whole system experiences perimenopause, menopause, not just your ovaries and your uterus and your period. And this is what we have to understand as women. And so, it's like, thank goodness there's more of it coming to the forefront. We still have a lot of work to do. And we also need to not go into panic mode, like, oh my gosh, I've got to hurry up and do this now. Yesterday was a great day to begin. Today's a perfect day. Tomorrow is also an awesome day. It's like, just allow yourself to anchor in. And I always say to women, we can't change everything overnight. That actually would be super stressful. Can we focus on one, maximum 2 things right now until they are like brushing your teeth? Then we know you are ready for the next thing. And so we're battling, like you said, the Amazon energy, the Instagram energy. And this is where we have to really take back control and claim it for ourselves.
100%. Like, the whole time, Chris and I have just been nodding along with everything that's come out of your mouth, because verbatim, what you've said is what we say to our acne clients day in and day out. We need to balance your blood sugar. That's the number one. That and your digestion. We need to be focusing on that. Huge. We need to be pulling back one thing at a time. And one of the things I tell the clients all the time is many small steps for one massive leap. It's not about doing this massive overhaul, because again, that's going to be so stressful. And Chris, like, I know you've been nodding along, especially from the testing perspective, where Jenn, we're equally like, we need to test. We need to see what's going on. We can't just put you on DIM because you saved your hormone acne. We need to know what's happening, right, Chris?
Oh gosh. And DIM and perimenopause, you have to be so careful with, because if you have a woman that has low ovarian reserve and her estradiol is already tanking, and you go put her on DIM, you are probably going to have somebody messaging you within 3 months saying, I have hot flashes all of a sudden, or I've got this symptom, or I've got that. So it is really important to, again, just slow it down, take your time, make really clear decisions as to why you are choosing what you are putting into your body. And, we just have to understand, like, this is a long journey. We have time. There's no expiry, right? We don't have to, it doesn't have to be accomplished in 90 days.
We can give ourselves that time. Chris, any other tidbits that have popped into your brain as you've been listening?
I have no idea how we have not crossed paths, Jenn, because I'm like, that's what I say. That's what I do. That's how I am. What's going on here? So it's nice because sometimes we also want validation as practitioners, because everybody knows this about me, Katie, and stuff. This is why we jam together, is I don't do it the typical way. So even if I'm taking a client in the clear skin or private, I always say, you are not going to get coached like you've been coached before. I promise you, because I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of cool. But now I see, Katie, how you align with Jenn and how this all thing, and I'm going to BC. So if I liked matcha, I'd hit you up. But other than that, that stuff's
we'll let you have a coffee.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm not a coffee hater. My body just doesn't like it.
Same. Me either. I'm more matcha, but I know I can't believe either of you haven't met either, because just knowing both of you individually, you have such similar values and core beliefs and teachings that I think this was just such a perfect alignment for our podcast today. So Jenn, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. We so appreciate it. So does our audience. And I know you are most active over on Instagram at Jenn Pike. We're going to put all of your information in the show notes, because you also have a really awesome adrenal and thyroid health masterclass that I highly recommend you guys watch. So that's also linked in the show notes. And Jenn, is there any parting words that you wanted to leave our perimenopausal audience with?
Allow yourself to digest the information as it comes to you and really anchor into the foundational elements. You gave one example. I give the example that is such a common quote, which is, it is the small hinges that swing the big doors. So it is the boring, daily, consistent stuff that is going to lead to you having your healthiest, most vital body. And, we have tons of resources that are specific to perimenopause. I have the class you just talked about, but I also have a free perimenopause masterclass that's in there, and loads of different episodes. And I run the perimenopause project a couple of times a year. So our next one launches in the fall in October. And this is for the woman who she wants to learn how to be the advocate for herself. So she's resourced going into any appointment that she has. She really starts to build on that foundational education and knowledge. She feels calmer in her body, more confident in her body. And, just at the end of the day, the kind of information and the way I teach is, I want women to share this with other women. This is not for you to know. If we're going to change anything about the way that women support their bodies, the way that our children support their bodies, we all have to be part of this energy together. And so the only way we do that is by learning about it, but then you have to actually go integrate it. So that would be my final tip to people. Don't just be an information consumer, be somebody who gathers the information, but now you have to actually go and do something with it.
100%. And it really creates that beautiful ripple effect, because once you start to integrate it and you share it with your loved ones, your children, whoever it may be, we create this incredible ripple effect that we have no idea how far it's going to expand into the world. So this was another ripple that everyone got to hang out with today. Jenn, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. As I mentioned, all of Jenn's information is going to be in the show notes. I highly recommend go and check everything out. That's it for us today on the Clear Skin Chronicles. We will see you next week on another episode. Thanks for hanging out with us this week on the Clear Skin Chronicles. We'll see you next Wednesday with a brand new episode. Remember to subscribe to the show and drop us a review. Sending glowing vibes your way, Katie and Chris.